Welcome to the Infinite Show.
All
You're
right.
on with Iran and AK.
And we're live. And we're not playing music until we get large enough that we can strong arm the record companies and the social media platforms to let us play these songs without pulling us down.
That's the bad news. The good news is Iran has agreed to hum whatever comes to his mind first when we say go.
Which
Welcome to the Infinite.
Now I dream in color. Am I still on? Where am I?
Yeah,
Where?
you're on the Infinite.
I gotta find. Oh, I'm in the on the infinite. I'm on the infinite. To find the tab. Getting our Instagram here. I heard recently again that humming like 10 minutes a day, potentially 4 times a day, but the act of humming is incredibly beneficial for multiple different aspects of your body. It like increases positive levels of something or another. I don't remember the exact detail, but it was like of meaningful improvement, like higher oxygenation and your blood cells and other important things just by humming.
Did we just find our caller?
To hum to people?
Just to hum every show. Every show should have like a 10 to 12-minute humming session to increase blood flow.
Let's try it.
Wait, are you humming?
Mm-hmm.
Playing the kazoo.
I'm humming. Does it sound like a kazoo?
Do you secretly have a kazoo behind you? You know what Bob Dylan doesn't get enough credit for? Being a really good harmonica player. I have not been able to crack the harmonica code. Despite several attempts to surface the summit at different phases and stages of my life, it never clicked. I never got there.
Can I tell you how to think about it in a way that might make it easy for you? Think about it like a piano. And so your ins and your outs, and then as you move up these little holes, is just like going white key, black key. And when you know the ins and the outs and the thing, and you'll know the octaves, it'll become just as intuitive as when to play a black key on a piano.
So your advice is think of it like a piano?
That's my advice. I don't know if that's good advice or not.
I told you
it is advice.
I'm starting to take piano lessons. So maybe
I know, yeah.
Maybe I should grab a harmonica too and just put them side by side.
Very similar. And then you can learn how to play piano, man. Okay. I need to get something for Kurut. Let's see. I don't want to do that. This won't be very interesting for the show, though. Maybe I'll have to just do it later. So can I tell you that? I got to tell you, I have to get this off my chest. I was either going to tell nobody ever or
everybody.
Yeah. So
this is what's going to attract our audience, is when you make a promise like that. Because as soon as you don't want anybody to know what you're about to say, then everybody somehow finds a way to hear it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm about to share something that I don't want anybody to know. So I figured, what better place to share it than in the infinite? Let's see. Oh, look at that. We're live on YouTube. Good for us. So I did an Instagram post that talked about, I said, I can prove to you in the next 60 seconds you're a multidimensional being. And broke down length, width, and height. That's all 3D. And that you have a mind, and that your mind is in 4D. And if you have a body in 3D and you have a mind in 4D and they're different dimensions, you're multidimensional. That's just a setup to the thing I don't want to tell anybody, which also is incredibly synchronistic. So I got a message from a guy who saw that and said, wow, this is really profound. And I'm contemplating it, thinking about it. And he asked me a question of how does that relate to the conscious and the unconscious? And he had some thoughts about it, that, the physical body is the conscious. And if we're not present, are we unconscious? How does that work dimensionally? And I had never really thought too hard about the overlay of the conscious and unconscious into space and time, physicality, non-physicality. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me think about that. I'm going to contemplate that. So I went for a drive and I went to the grocery store so that I could buy some Olipop because they're great, and some other things. And so while I'm driving, I'm thinking about this and I'm voice dictating it. And I'm just thinking out loud to see what might come through that actually is like, oh. And then the thought came to me that the unconscious, so let me take a step back. The body exists in space. And the mind, which exists in time, it's not that it's not where the body is. It's where is its focus, because the body can never be separate from the mind. But it's similar to clouds in the sky, where you could be staring at one cloud and then an airplane or a bird could fly by. You might not see it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. You just weren't looking at it. You weren't focused on it. And so in the vastness, the infinite of time, of mind, the body exists in a particular space, and we can focus our energy there. Now, we always have some energy focus there, but sometimes our focus is distracted and we're thinking about other things in other places, and we're not present within our current space. And sometimes that's a positive, sometimes it's not. Like if we're visualizing or, thinking of something, but we're also, when we do that, we're very intentional. But sometimes we're just in other places. So the unconscious is really when our mind is not focused on what we are doing in that physical space. Okay. And I had that thought and I thought, wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty profound. Being unconscious, not being aware of what we're doing or paying attention to what we're doing in physical space. And at that exact moment, I ran a fucking red light. I ran a red light and I didn't realize it till I was halfway through. I was contemplating what it means to be unconscious, to not be focused and paying attention to what is happening in your physical space. And because of that contemplation, I wasn't focusing of what I was doing in my physical space. And I ran a red light. And thank God nothing happened. And it was kind of going through the intersection. Then I saw some cars to my right of me that were about to get going. And I was confused for a split second. Like, wait a minute, what? And I saw it was red, and I'm just like, oh shit. So, as strong and insightful and potentially profound as that thought was that came to me, like I need to be with it more. When it first came through, I really felt like, whoa, this is something. I also immediately manifested the thought in form and experienced it, which was an incredible reminder of how our thoughts become things, because I was thinking conceptually about not being present in my physical space, and it instantly manifested with me not being present in my physical space. So I got back. I was kind of spooked. I couldn't believe I did that. And I got into the parking lot and was just like, okay, thank you. Thank you for teaching me that. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you so much for not having anything horrible happen. And thank you for reminding me to take my own medicine. We learn what we teach. So I had that experience happen tonight. And I wasn't going to tell anybody, but now I told everybody. So now you know. I ran a red light.
That's your really embarrassing story?
Yeah. I ran a fucking red light. I could have like killed somebody.
Man, I told you a story right before we started that was just as embarrassing as that, if not more.
That you slipped on ice?
I drove my friends to the airport who were staying with me. It was like a 5 a.m. wake up. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go get some food for my family and I'll bring it home. They're going to be so excited because they'll just be waking up and I'll be walking through the door with food. And I parked in front of the coffee shop, bakery, whatever it was. I did not think about it at all, even though I live in a place that's snowy and icy. And I got out of my car, and it's like a drop down towards like level ground. You know, it's a little raised off the ground. I just went straight onto my back, and I had just gotten a steamer coffee from another coffee shop because I was waiting for the other one to open. And it just went up into the air and just all landed right on me. And I literally had the same thought that you did. That was like, oh man, I was riding high. I was thinking all the thoughts about how much I'm in the flow and how great everything's going. And man, did life just find a way to put me on my ass. And then when I walked into the coffee shop, I was like drenched with my drink. And so they came out and like wiped me down with a towel, which I thought was really nice.
Did they actually wipe you or did they give you the towel?
No, they actually wiped me. It was like, like when you're watching a basketball game and then the towel boy comes over and he's just like, But anyway, I don't think that story was that embarrassing, but it does make a lot of sense. That
it's interesting. I found it. Well, what's embarrassing is like, it was I just straight ran a red light, like no attempt to stop at all. And that's so, but then it also started to go through my mind, like, oh my, like maybe I immediately added a lot of story to it. What I find fascinating about it, though, is the pretense of that it was the embodiment of exactly what I was thinking in terms of the presence that we have of when our mind isn't focused of where we are in space. And that's exactly what I was doing by thinking it. as opposed to actually being more present, the thought of thinking it came to be that I was experiencing it embodied instead of conceptually what you would want it to be.
You know, someone just joined the chat.
From where? Where are you calling from or writing from? Let's see. Min. Hi. Hi, Min. Let's see. From YouTube. Hey, Min. Can you write back to Min? I can't.
Oh. All right. Hi, Min.
Hi, Min.
We've had a Max on this show, but this is our first Min.
Oh, I want to show you this. This is really some really exciting stuff to share with you. Let's see if I can. On our Instagram page. Where is it? Where's our messages?
Oh, I tried to watch the Instagram. I logged into Instagram thinking, oh, I'm going to check out the show. And it says live, like the Infinite show is live. And I clicked on it and then nothing happened. It says we're live. But when I tried to like click through to the account and even, it just, I saw the like posts that were there, but there was no live feed or stream.
Before you bring that up, can you take that down for a second? So on our Instagram, at the Infinite Show on Instagram, we got a direct message from somebody. Somebody reached out. And his name is Emilek Drozdowski. And I've been meaning to share this with you. We actually reached out a couple weeks ago. And if you can click on the page, I'll show you. This is the message that was sent to us on the Instagram account. Okay. So that is what it is. Somebody decided, I'm going to send this image to the Infinite Show. Then 10 hours later, we got a different message, and it was this.
Oh.
So they decided 10 hours later, I'm going to send the exact same image of my face.
Is it the exact same?
It's the exact same image.
Just cropped?
Just sent. Oh, or actually, is it? Are the eyes different?
It's not the same image. I mean, it might be cropped.
How interesting.
Like on this one, it looks like his hands are clapping.
Oh, it is. So it's the exact same image. It's just, oh no, it isn't. Look, the hands. Oh my gosh. What an incredible catch. The hands are different. I thought we got the exact same image. I didn't look closely enough. Look, the left hand is higher. There's space between the hands here.
Right.
Do you see here, space here, and here there's no space. And the eyes are darker here. So that was sent on 12/21, and then 10 hours later on the same day. So then the next day, the next morning, about 8 hours later, we got another message from Emilek. And this was the next message. And this one looks to be the exact same as this one. As if to say, no, I'm sure this is the one I wanted to send you. Let me send it again. 2 days later, on Christmas Eve, we received another message from Emelec. But this time it was a video of him.
I can't hear him. Oh,
go to London, and in London, I waiting for ticket, deported, because people English give me and I don't pay, because this is present for me. And in this time in England, you have problem when you go into England, and I sent to you. You don't go to England because I tell you language Polish. I sent to Rosja. Opublikuję ciebie, Władimir, że chcą ciebie zdjąć jako prezydenta Rosji, chcą twojej klęski, co nie? W 2018 we wrześniu, bo był zlot prezydentów w Anglii i napisałem tylko jedną rzecz, że mam na klatce piersiowej
It continues. So what I find
Did he say multiple times I'm drunk, or did I just hear that?
I'm not sure. He was in a couple different languages. I think Polish, I think English. Said something about the president and maybe a woman named Ruth. What I find fascinating about that is that we got this first one and it was like, oh, somebody just spammed this, or somebody wanted to send this to everybody. But then we got a second one, which made me think, oh, it must be a bot that's just sending these things.
Right. Now, I thought it was a bot too.
And then a third one came the next day and was like, wow, this definitely, like, I don't even understand this.
I think he thinks if it's a real person and this is actually somebody sending this, I think he thinks he's knocking at the door.
But then the fact that this video came after those three tells me that these first three seemingly were done by and it's the guy who made this video is the guy in the picture. He even has the cold sore.
In 2018, when I go to London and in London.
In 2008, when he went to Rome Dome and Dina Dome Dome. But now if you look in the picture, it actually has his cold sore, but on the other side. So then I was like, wow, what is happening here? That he would choose to send this 3 times in 24 hours. And then a couple days later, this video. And then a full week later, we got another message. Do you want to know what it was? It was the picture again.
Man, it's working.
Yeah.
This show is catching fire. It is syndicated around the world, and somebody has found us and decided to fuck with us.
Yeah, or he wasn't done either, because then he sent a video again.
In 2018, when
and it was the same video.
Mm.
So
maybe it is a bot.
It's catching on. Hey, Cranky Old Viking is here on Instagram. Welcome. I love that name. Somebody's joining us on Instagram named Cranky Old Viking.
Love it.
Nate was teaching me how to play Magic today. Speaking of Cranky Old Vikings. You know the card game Magic?
I do. I actually know nothing about it. I know nothing about it. Yeah. But one of my roommates in college convinced me for a period of time that he was really into the game of Magic, the card game that you're referring to. And I bought into it hook, line, and sinker.
You wait. He said that he was into it, and you
Yeah.
believed him.
Yeah, it was just a long troll.
Oh, but he didn't. He wasn't into it.
Yeah, he thought it was so funny that I believed him for like a minute.
I was just thinking about something. Banners. We haven't seen banners in a little while.
Yeah, we should do some banners. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, how do I get the live stream up on Instagram? Could it be that I can't watch it if I'm under the profile that is The Infinite?
I don't know. I think you should be able to, because I think I am.
I'm gonna switch. Maybe two people can't watch it at the same time.
You know.
There was an article today in the New York Times about a book that was about Vikings. And basically the book was like, the perception we have of Vikings, that they were raiders and did all these terrible things, is like totally not what the Viking culture was. I mean, A, they didn't call themselves Vikings. B, they were just Germanic tribes that went north up into Scandinavia. The Anglo-Saxons were also Germanic tribes. So were the Jutes. So they're just like,
what did they call themselves?
Viking. No. I don't know. That's a good question.
Kind of reset this password here.
All right, I'm back on the Instagram profile. Where do I go to find the live stream?
On Instagram?
Yeah.
You just should go to like Instagram.
So I went to Instagram.com. I logged in as myself.
And did you go to
live at the top left-hand part of the page? Like The Infinite is live. So I click on that and it takes me to the Infinite show page, but there's nothing live. It's just the pictures. There's the picture of the guy that is saying, am I the only one who realizes we're fucking alive right now?
There's nothing in the little circle that says live?
Well, it says live when I'm like on the homepage. But when I click on the thing that says live, it takes me to a page where there's nothing live. It just takes me to the profile page.
Yeah, that's right. I see that. That did the same thing for me.
You know what? You know what it was? The humming.
We got taken down for humming.
I mean, in the past, when we've gotten taken down from Instagram, it tells us right away that we're no longer live on Instagram. So I would expect that to happen.
Yeah, I don't know where our live is. Our people following us has also slowed down a lot. Maybe because we were new, Instagram was showing us to a lot of people.
Yeah, like boosts you
to make us feel better.
Right. Which would like be inflating our egos just to get us to keep going.
That actually would be a pretty smart thing for them to do when somebody first joins. It'd be like, oh my gosh, look, it's like when you first sit down to a slot machine, like if you started to win early on, you're like, oh man, this is great.
Should we just keep putting quarters in this machine?
Yeah, exactly. So the house on Airbnb, the guy wrote back and said it's 2 stories, which isn't a deal breaker
As long as
necessarily.
one bedrooms downstairs.
Yeah, so I wrote him back. So we can find out about that.
Man, I want to watch the Instagram live.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not. I can't see it either. Are we live on Facebook?
No,
We're not streaming on Facebook.
no, we've never done that.
Oh, we should do that.
I think we should do that. Yeah,
We
should do Facebook. I think we should do.
We have the Infinite Show on Facebook.
Right. No, we should do Facebook, and we should do TikTok.
Yeah, we got to set that up. I haven't posted on that page in a while. I should use that. Yeah. So going full steam on getting some digital products made. That's the next thing. I feel like we're in a good flow right now with the Instagram content. You know, the videos that are coming out, like I like them. It's good quality, good editing, no traction or views or new views at all. Barely any. Maybe that, that just takes time. It's not like you just throw up, you got to just keep going. But I like the feel. I like what we're doing, creating with it. I've had a couple people that I know, friends, respond and say, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I like the content. I like the vibe, the production. It's nice. That's good." And
they're watching shorts.
It's just the Instagram reels. And the guy, the editor, whoever's doing them now is doing a really good job.
Okay. So not from the Infinite Show, but from the
no, just on my
Easy. Yep.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah. Let me. You know what? Actually,
I just came up with an idea. You should start a show called the Easy Money Show, where you talk about money. There's not enough people that talk about money. We're afraid to talk about money. It's like politics, money, and religion are forbidden. But if there's 3 things I really want to teach my kids, it's those 3 things.
Yeah. I maybe I can teach my kids about money by saying, don't do what I did.
What you should do, because somebody just created an app or ticker, I don't know what it is, that shows the trades of all the members of Congress.
Yeah, I saw that. I asked him, a friend of mine, my best friend from growing up and forever, who's a financial advisor. I said, "What do you think about this?" And he says it's bullshit.
Bullshit because it doesn't actually track their trades, or because it's bullshit that the members of Congress are allowed to trade on insider information?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you exactly what he said, because I don't want to paraphrase it wrongly. Because I, like you, was in the people that shared, is this is such bullshit that members of Congress, how is it that they make crazy amounts of money on the stock and always seem to pick right? He said, "I think it's silly and gimmicky. I place no more credibility in Nancy Pelosi stock picks than in Obama's March Madness bracket predictions. The Stock Act, which members of Congress are required to follow, doesn't require trades to be reported for weeks after they are executed, and does not differentiate whether the trades were made based on recommendations from an advisor or initiated by the member of Congress.
Okay. I'm going to tell you what to write back to your friend.
Well, I'm not going to write. This was like a month ago.
Oh, I don't
So
know. I'm just joking, but here's what I would say.
Yeah.
If a blind monkey kept throwing darts at a dartboard and hitting the bullseye, eventually I would pick him to be on my team.
Yeah. Yeah. If you find any trend that seems to be working.
Well, I've thought about this because randomness is actually really hard to do. Like, computers don't do anything random. None. Zip. Computers only do algorithms that are functions of mathematical equations that have very specific steps. Computers don't do random. Full stop. What if we created an index to invest in the stock market that was just totally random? Like, for example, if you use dice or something else that is actually random, you could create a way to correlate that to the stocks in the stock market and then just pick random times to buy and sell stocks. So you created an actual random function of buying stocks. And that function and that index of randomness would be better than the vast majority of traders, or especially like retail traders or investors.
You're saying it would, if it could be random, it would be better?
Yeah. Yeah.
How could you be so sure it would be better?
Because most people can't outperform just simple index stock picking. Like the market in general is going to go up, it's going to go down. So, if you took any amount of money, you just invested it in the stock market in an index fund or whatever, that would most likely be better than what most people do, which is they try to time their trades and they try to select their stocks.
Yeah. I'm all for making an oracle.
Okay, I admit it. It's a version of an oracle. Guilty.
We should make an oracle that picks stocks, picks crypto. Do a fucking hell of a lot better than I have. But yes, talking about what I could talk about with money is how it's infinite.
We could just make it a segment of our show, but then repost it as if it were its own show. So, welcome to today's episode of the Easy Money Show, starring Eran Zahavi.
Easy Money Show. Oh, you put that into the stream chat. I see that on Twitch.
Of course I did.
You should put up a banner.
Your new show.
Because if people come, then we want them to. Who wants easy money? I want to talk about, I actually thought about this. Funny you would say that right before the call, wanting to create some content more for business owners and hire net worth people, utilize my entrepreneurial background, and then finding the pathway between, business, entrepreneurship, spirituality,
and humor.
Sure. Well, always. But between that, just kind of like, how would that?
Well, name a money show that's funny.
I don't watch any money shows. I don't know.
But they're all serious. That's my point.
Yeah.
And like Steve Martin does this bit. It's so good. He talks about how banks never name their banks something that would be like a creative name. Like there's no Frank's Bank. But if it was Frank's Car Wash or Frank's used car sale lot, be Frank,
Yeah. Jerry's Bank. So the thought, I'm thinking about where to put things on LinkedIn or something. But then I thought about, what could I share about money? And what I could share about money is that you don't have to be so attached to it. Can appreciate it, utilize it, respect it, honor it. Could want it, sure, but don't be so attached to it. I find that a lot of, this isn't for everybody, but a lot of people that have more money, they have more money because they adhere to certain laws and principles that benefit the growth of money. But by doing that, sometimes they lose sight of the bigger picture and they become too attached to money. And, you know, let me think about how I want to say this. There's an example I want to give, and I was like, oh, should I say who it is? That's another thing now, thinking about like being on a live show. When you like give examples of people you know.
Right, you got to protect the innocent.
Yeah, exactly. So I know, well, I won't give any examples, even though the person I'm thinking of will never, ever see this. But there's some, I'll give a general. Sometimes people that have a lot of money have done so because they're incredibly fiscal with their tracking of money. And, you know, if they have employees, maybe they've paid their employees, you know, they negotiate, they get good rates, things like that. But to the point where it almost gets to be too out of touch. It's like they have so much money. Like for, you know, Akurut right now is working. And he's doing work for $15 an hour. And the guy he's working for has a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And he could pay him $20 an hour. And that would be a significant jump for Akurut. And the work he's doing really good work. Paying $20 an hour to get that work done is still better than he would pay if he hired somebody, you know, on a contract basis. So he'd still be getting a great rate, especially for the level of work. And he really likes him too. They're friends. And if he got $20 an hour, it's a 33% increase from 15. And the impact that extra money would have would go so far to helping a lot of people in Uganda. You know, so if he ends up working 40 hours, that's an extra $80. That could pay for food for a month,
right? For
like a family. And the guy, and Akurut asked him, and he wouldn't give him 20. He kept him at 15, and he gave him the reason why. Well, because, you know, you don't have the experience, or it's like, what? But he's doing a great job, or you don't have your own tools, or these different reasons that are logical within the game of, well, you know, if you have this degree, you come in at this level, and this amount of experience is equal to this, you know, that's sort of that we created. So he's not wrong, and he's not even particularly cheap. He's actually playing the game efficiently as is designed, but from that he's lost sight of what actually makes sense, because if that extra $5 went, he'd never know. It doesn't mean anything to him.
He's such an interesting subject.
Yeah.
You reminded me that I sort of shared this with you, but I want to share it again. Which is, I'm bringing up a picture. The other night, I dropped my car off at the airport for some friends who were visiting. These are the same friends that I dropped off when I fell my ass on the ice. And my plan was, I was working late. had a couple hour window to go do something before I was supposed to receive some updates from a colleague. So I was like, I'm going to go bring my car to the airport, and I'll just hop in an Uber or a Lyft and then just come on back home. And I live like 35 minutes from the airport. Not that far. And then I get to the airport, drop my car off, and I check Uber, and it's like $400 to take an Uber back home. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm not paying $400 to get in an Uber. Like this, it's like surge pricing on top of surge pricing. Like, just didn't feel right. So I was like, all right. And I was checking on Uber, and it had been a minute since I used Lyft. So I was like, I'm going to download Lyft. I'm going to see what their pricing is. Download Lyft. Pricing is not great, but not as bad as Uber was. There were some rides for like in the 90s, low hundreds. And then there was an option for $78 for an XL ride, meaning their more expensive product, which is the XL product, like a Suburban, was $78, which was more affordable than all the other options. So I said, great, this is perfect. I'll take a XL option for the least amount of money, please. Thank you, Alex. And I booked it. And it took $78 out of my account because it put a hold on my credit card for $78. And then I waited the 17 minutes or whatever it said it was going to take in terms of how long I needed to wait for the car to show up. And then it kept kind of pushing it back. It pushed it all the way back to like 45 minutes later. And I was like, oh, it's still worth the wait. It's $78. I don't want to pay $400. So I'll just wait. And then 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, 30 minutes go by, and I'm waiting and I'm checking my app every few minutes, just to make sure it's okay. And then maybe there's like 10 minutes left before it's supposed to be arriving. This is the second time that it's already been pushed back. And I go to my phone and I check the Lyft app, and there's nothing there. There's no ride. There's no scheduled ride. There's nothing there. And I'm like, what just happened? And I try to find it everywhere. I click through the whole app. I go to the help section. There's nothing to help you there. I think, oh, this is the perfect time to reach out to customer service. It must be a technical glitch. They can bring my ride back up. I go on the internet. I try to find a customer service number. I cannot find one. There is no customer service. There's no way to email the company. There's no way to call the company. And then I find something that leads me to believe that if you go on Twitter and you tweet at them, that they will then tweet back at you. So I download Twitter, which I haven't used in forever. And now it's called X. And apparently you can't even tweet on X anymore. Like, I don't know if I just wasn't able to use it, or if you have to pay now to tweet or what. But I could DM. So I found the account for Lyft. I DM'd the account. And then they wrote back to me. And then I just had the most ridiculous conversation with either a person pressing prefabricated messages, because every time I tried to say something, they would say something back to me like, oh, we're so sorry about that. And then they would tell me about my experience, but it wasn't my experience. It was like their prefabricated message version of my experience. So I kept trying to correct them just in simple ways, saying, no, actually, this is what happened. Like, there was nothing that said that the driver wasn't available. Like, there was actually no message at all. In fact, there was just like no evidence of the ride whatsoever ever having been booked, except for the fact that there was a hold on my credit card. So I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And they're trying to throw me some crumbs or some pieces of bread, like, oh, we'll return the $78 for you. Oh, thanks. But, this is 45 minutes later. And by the way, when I tried to rebook a ride on Lyft, now they're in the hundreds of dollars. So it was like, I think 4 times more expensive than what I had originally booked a ride for after I'd waited 45 minutes. Something about that just felt so wrong.
Totally.
Just wrong. Like you booked a hotel room and you show up at the hotel and they're like, sorry, there's no evidence of you having booked a room. We're so sorry. Here's your $78 back.
Yeah.
No acknowledgement of what happened or what actually happened. And then no accountability, 0. And I really felt trapped in the matrix. I felt trapped in the matrix. And this is the second time this has happened to me in like the last, 6 weeks. Like, I bought some concert tickets for a friend. thinking I was buying tickets from the vendor, and it turned out to be a scalper, and the scalper totally ripped me off. And I tried to ask for a refund, and there was just no refund and no ability to ever like have any accountability. And at least that company had a customer service department. And when I asked to talk to the manager, the guy goes, "Oh, you're in luck today, sir. I am also the manager." And then continued to tell me nothing that was helpful. And I realized it's all just a scam. And we're like increasingly caught inside of this technosphere. And I'm using the word technosphere on purpose because that's the word that Jose Arguelles likes to use. And I like knew what he meant by it, but I didn't truly get it until I went through these experiences, when I realized that there was just layers of technology that were just serving people products and goods and services, but no accountability to the humanness of being a human. And it's just like this realization that like we're entering this new era and this new age of just automated everything, and that the humanity is getting sucked out of the human experience in a way that's going to affect us in ways I don't think we truly quite understand or comprehend yet. And all of this backstory is for me to tell you, when I got home, my parents were also staying with me for a few days. This is over Christmas and New Year's. My mom says, "Oh, you got this check in the mail." I said, "Great." And I opened it up. Who was it from? Lyft. I got a check in the mail for $5.94 from Bank of America, from KCC Class Action Services LLC. Somebody sued Lyft and they won the class action. And my portion of the class action lawsuit that I don't remember filling out or ever participating in was $5.94. Now, I assume that's not for being a rider. And by rider, I mean somebody that rides in a Lyft. I assume that's for being a driver, because the last time I actually was a driver for Lyft was 7 years ago, 7.5, when I was saving up extra cash because I hadn't planned on doing this. And then I kind of decided last minute to go to Bali to visit my friends who were going to be in Bali. Right after your injury, right after I went to Burning Man, right before I met my wife at the airport in China. And this is like residue left over of that era of my life. Here, 7 years boomeranging back. We talked about the 7-year cycle, the Shemitah. And parachuting down into my life is $5.94. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I spent the whole ride. And by the way, I ended up getting a taxi, like an actual taxi with a real driver, not a Lyft, to go back home. And my rate was $70, and I tipped the guy $30. So it cost $100. The whole ride home, I was thinking, how can I sue Lyft? Because I was so angry. And then I was like, there's no way to do it. Like, I keep asking to talk to their legal department or manager or somebody on the phone. Like, this is through the DMing of the app on Twitter. And it's just like, you're just getting the runaround. And I was like, do I have to take them to small claims court just to like seek a moment of justice? You know? And I realized too, their whole philosophy is just to grind you down. Because who's going to actually fall through days later? You know, who's going to keep that anger and that fire burning so hard that they'll actually follow through and find a way to sue the company? Well, somebody did. And I got $5.94 for it. And I didn't want to cash the check because that means you accept the terms of the lawsuit, which I don't even know what the terms were. You know, I feel like I have no say or power in that whole process. It just parachuted $5.94 into my pocket. However, I think this is a golden opportunity. Here's what I would like to do with this money. I want to take this money and turn it into prize money for the kids in Uganda whose school you have just supported, who we've shown on this show the simple impact. And by the way, this would be a great time to reshare some of those photographs that you got. I want to create a chess tournament of a version of chess called Super Chess that my wife and I created playing chess together, that is at least 5 to 10% more fun than regular chess. That was the goal. And I want to just let kids learn how to play chess by learning this version of chess called Super Chess, and then participate at the end of the year in a tournament. And whoever wins is going to win the bounty of the first place prize out of the total pool of prizes of $5.94. Because the whole idea is to turn a negative experience into something positive. I don't really want to sue anybody. I just want to bring more joy and love and laughter and light to the world. And what a perfect way to do it. This is what the universe wanted me to do with this check. It doesn't mean anything to me. I was going to throw it in the trash. I'd rather turn it into gold for somebody or somewhere or something that actually matters.
So we're going to host a chess tournament, a super chess tournament for kids in Uganda. Yes. And the winner will get $5.94.
I think maybe there's 3 levels of prizes. So you have a first, second, third place. And then the winner gets a certain amount. The second place gets another amount. And third place gets another amount. But I'm open to ideas.
So first place would get third place would get $1. And second place would get $2. And first place would get $2.94.
Yeah, or we could do the $5.94 for first place, and we could stake the rest.
Is there thought to increase the prize money, or is that kind of the final answer?
I'm open to anything. What I like about the beauty of this check being reassigned is that it's actually this money that I got from this stupid lawsuit on the same day that I was so upset about Lyft for messing up my ride and leaving me high and dry. And instead of channeling that anger into suing them, I want to channel that anger into something actually productive.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thought. I'd be down for that. To switch
one thing, it would be interesting to ask, what would $5.94 mean to one of these kids who won a tournament?
It's something. It would mean like getting, let's see what the exchange rate I think is. It's quite a lot. I'll tell you right now. It's that's like a day's work.
If that's even like $50 and you're in elementary school, that's a pretty big prize pool for winning a chess tournament.
Yeah. 20. Yeah. It's like a day's work for a grown-up. We might want to give a little bit more, I think. And then $5.94. I know that, this is a larger thing. The tournament that the debate team won, they got $10,000.
Oh, wow. In US dollars?
Total. Total prizes of the kids got their schools paid for, and Watum won a motorcycle, and all collectively, about that value worth.
Well, listen, it's not like we can't do other tournaments or other things, right? The first tournament could be $5.94.
Yeah, I feel like this is the equivalent of if we went out to eat and we had a really nice meal. Okay, maybe we go somewhere, and maybe it's even you bring the wife and I bring my dog or something, But the point, we go have a nice meal, and you're very generous and say, you know what, I'm gonna get it on me. And maybe maybe we had some wine. We don't normally drink, and we got some dessert. And the bill was $200. And you said, I'll get it. And I'm like, oh, great. And then you got it, but then you left a tip of $5.94. And then I looked and said, am I allowed to throw a 20 on the table without you being offended and then adding some more money to the pot. So would you be upset if I added more money to the prize pool? Or should I just sneak it in, like dropping a 20 and be like, oh, I left my jacket at the table. And then I go back and put a 20 into the little bill. Or would that be really offensive and you want to keep it at $5.94?
No, I mean, I got excited about this idea because it felt like some type of alchemy or jujitsu of dealing with the mechanization of life and the technosphere versus trying to do something where our humanity shines through. And it doesn't have to be so literal, but there is something cosmic about starting with a prize pool of $5.94. It could be on the first day of the chess tournament of the first month of school. You know what I mean? It could just be the start. We could then have bigger prize pools and bigger tournaments, but you got to plant the seed and you got to start the process of the kids even learning how to make the boards. And then we'd have to send out a bunch of chess pieces, so they had chess pieces to play with. Super chess involves dice. Like you use the dice as what we usually consider the king in chess. So to start the game, you roll dice to see who goes first. And then the king piece and the queen piece, they both act as queens on the board. So you can easily convert any chess set into a super chess set by adding a dice and then adding one pawn, which can either be an extra pawn because you have an extra pawn somehow, or it could be a penny, or it could be a seed or a nut. It's just one way to add an extra pawn to the board.
Could it be a rock?
It could be a rock.
Could it be a berry?
It could be a berry.
Could it be a stick?
It could be a stick.
Could it be a small leaf?
Maybe if you put the rock on top of the leaf.
Could it be a dollop of clay?
Especially if the clay was shaped like the other pawns.
Okay. Could it be a clump of hair?
Back to the rock thing, you should probably put the rock on the hair so it doesn't blow away.
Okay. What about just a gathering of lint?
Same problem. If it's even a little bit windy.
Could it be a thimble?
It could be the thimble from Monopoly. That would be a perfect pawn piece.
Could it be a toenail clipping?
No.
Could it be a tooth?
That is a bridge too far. Yeah, it could be a tooth. By the way, your Easy Money show is amazing.
Welcome to the Easy Money Show. I had a really beautiful insight shared with me from Yeshua a little while back. I might have told you when I was feeling a little bit of angst around finances. And I asked for some insight. I said, can you share something with me about this? And what I was shown or told was that similar to God's love, if you look at money, it's a complete difference of a perspective. If you look at it coming from a faucet or coming from a bottle. Because if it's coming from a bottle, you're going to be very concerned about when it's going to run out, and you're going to need to ration it. And it's finite, and it creates fear. If it's coming from a faucet, it'll just keep coming. It continues to flow. Now, that doesn't mean that it's okay to just waste it and do whatever you want with it. You still want to acknowledge it and honor it and respect it for what it is. But if you recognize the flow of life, the flow of God, and money itself actually comes through a faucet, through a hose, and not from a bottle. It comes from an infinite stream. It's an entirely different relationship to it. And I thought that was really profound to give that view of how to look at it that way. And I try to do that when I have somehow money likes to leave me a lot. And then if I look at it like it's mine or it's from a bottle or I won't get more, then it's, oh gosh, and you get worried. But if you look at yourself as a conduit and a channel for it to just to move through you, you're like, well, great, that's what it's supposed to do.
I think most people are just channels that lose money. But it's rare to find somebody that actually has a relationship with money, that money just keeps growing the more things they do. That seems to be a rare person. But I was also thinking about your show, the Easy Money Show. Like, everybody talks about how to make money, but you could tell people how to lose money and really be an expert.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could zig while others are zagging, because I don't think there's any shows about how to effectively lose money.
Oh, I could master. But truly, what I think I could share about is what happens when you lose it, and then how do you be okay with it? and how can we allow it to move more? You know, there's it's a great book called The Soul of Money, written by a woman named Lynn Twist. And she has a beautiful perspective because she was very wealthy. Her and her husband did very well, so much so that they didn't want to do laundry. They threw their clothes away. And then kind of had this awakening come to Jesus moment that there's something more out there. And then she went the complete opposite direction. She ended up working with people in parts of the world, working with a lot of women empowerment, but working in parts of the world where the concept of money did not exist. The concept of it didn't exist. And she also worked directly coaching, consulting with particularly women who were 7 and 8 figure annual earners, CEOs. So she has an incredible breadth of experience globally when it comes to money. And her insights from that were really powerful. And one of the things she says that's important to remember is that money is like water. It has to move, or else it becomes stagnant. And then if you think about it like breath, if all you do is inhale, if all you do is take, you're going to die. If all you do is exhale, you're going to die. You need to inhale and exhale. You need the in and the out, the give and the receive. And the beauty of it is that if you let out a big exhale, Yeah, like really, this is the biggest exhale you've let out all day, I'm sure, because you're really let it go. Then take a big inhale. You can inhale more after a big exhale.
Do you know I've said this to you before? Do you know why I know that I've said this to you before? Because that was the exact insight that I had during an experience in my life that I referred to as a Kundalini experience. I don't know what the fuck it was, but the climax of the entire experience was that realization.
In regards to breath or money?
Breath.
breath. Oh, amazing. So think about that in relationship to money. And so it's the idea that if you're really feeling pinched on money, the best thing you could do is to give some money away.
Right. No,
And
there's some beauty there, and I like that because I really like to zig when others are zagging, and I'm not just saying that. You're doing the opposite, which is funny because I've had conversations with you before about money where I literally thought you were saying the opposite of what we should do when I thought rationally about money.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was like when we were talking about buying real estate together or what it was, but I remember thinking like that's the exact opposite of what we should actually do. And you're like, no, let's do this. Let's find a way to have a higher debt service. And I was thinking we should find a way to have a lower debt service for whatever debt we take out.
Mm. I was asking for a higher debt service.
Yeah, I think it was when we were looking at the property in Ashland.
Hmm. Oh, maybe.
But this is fascinating. Yeah, no, I can't believe you just told a story and that was the moral of the story. Because I've told this story about my Kundalini experience to you a couple times and probably some other people in my life a few times. And the climax of the story is always this realization because I was in a bathtub when it happened. And when you're in a bathtub and you breathe underwater with your mouth above the water, your whole body sinks or floats a little bit based off of the buoyancy of your body, and your buoyancy changes when your breath is inside of your lungs versus when you exhale. So it becomes even more amplified.
Mm.
And there was just this moment where I was like entering these really long breath cycles. And this is after I'd been through something more like Breath of Fire, which is very short breath cycles. And I felt the energy moving up and down my spine. And it was like somebody had turned on a flashlight inside of my soul, but to where my breath and my spine met each other. And the culmination of that experience was me realizing that if I breathed all the way out, and there was this moment where I was doing that, consecutively. And then there was this moment where I breathed out all the way and I thought I was done breathing out. And then there was just this moment that went, it was like a little bit more air came out. And then the next breath was like the first breath of the rest of my life. It was like the breath that a baby takes when it first comes out of the womb.
Mm.
And without a doubt, like an inflection point, a turning point in the story of my life.
Mm. I wonder if I knew that and then brought that into the story with The Soul of Money. Or I wonder if or maybe it just wasn't a crossover.
Maybe it's both, but what if what you just said is true about money? And this breath metaphor was just like an unbelievable metaphor to offer up to talk about money with.
Mm. On the Easy Money Show.
Because, breath in a lot of languages, or the word for breath, is very connected to the word for soul and like all these languages across the world. And you just said this book is called The Soul of Money.
The Soul of Money, yes.
The breath of money.
The breath of money. If money were breath, you can't just hold it. It has to move. And you can't be afraid and shy to release it. And yeah, you can take a big inhale, sure. But it feels good. You got to let it move. as well. You know, and another thing she said was that she found that was common with some of the women she worked with that were very high earners, 7 or 8 figure earners. And said well, why do you do it? So I want to provide a great life for my kids. I do it for my kids. And they work a ton. And they work so many hours and they miss out on so much of their kids' lives. But they don't see that. And then there's this missing, and then similarly asking people that are very wealthy, what's the one thing you worry the most about? And most common answer was money. Money. Because now they have more money, more problems, more to worry about, more to make sure nothing happens to, more to not screw up, more to not go backwards, more to not lose, because we have this relationship with money that up and to the right is good and down and, is bad. More is good, less is bad. And so we never want to have less than we did prior.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we have, the more concerned we are about going in the other direction.
How much just choice or intention play into this? Right? Our banner that is going across the screen says, "Welcome to the Easy Money Show. Tell us about your money problems. We will help you lose as much money as you would like to lose."
How much money would you like to lose?
I'm saying that facetiously, obviously, but also, is there a point where you can decide I'm done losing money all the time? And I'm talking about me and you and or other people that are going through these cycles of debt and being broke and blah, blah, blah. Like, is there a way to shift that perspective through consciousness or better habits or more knowledge or just coming onto your show? And
so, yes. And I also would want to get rid of the idea or the thought that you're actually losing money, because it's not being lost. Let's get that idea out of the conversation. It's not lost. If you used money, if you spent money, if money was stolen from you, if you gambled it, whatever it was, you didn't lose it. And that in and of itself lends to that fear as well and the shame around it. But you had money and then you gave money or released money. You just had it move through you and more can come. You didn't lose your breath when you exhaled. And that's the relationship to money being finite or infinite.
my favorite quote from the Talmud also relates to this subject. So it'd be a good time to bring it up again. And it's when a bunch of rabbis are sitting around debating the question of justice. Does justice exist? And the first rabbi says something about justice. And then the second rabbi says something else about justice. And then the third rabbi says, does justice exist? Well, God gave bread to the wealthy and hunger to the poor, and therefore the world is just. To me, this ancient text revealed something turned on in my brain when I first heard that, because it's an energetic equation. It's an equation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The starving poor artist has hunger to create great art and is more likely to create great art because they have that hunger. Without that hunger, they wouldn't be able to create great art. The person that has lots of money. They have the bread, but they don't have the keys to the universe. They have to give that bread away. If you've got too much bread on your table and you're just hoarding all the bread, that doesn't result in happiness the way that you think it might.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wonder if you could add your thoughts, since it's the Easy Money Show, and this is a quote from the Talmud about money, but also food.
Well, I do want to acknowledge that on Anthony Johnson just joined us. It was Anthony Johnson Creative. And so at first, it was Anthony John. No, it's Anthony John's son. No, but it's not Anthony John's son. It's actually Anthony Johnson. It's Creative. So Anthony Johnson Creative. How is it just that the rich get fed and the poor are given hunger? It is just because it is only from the polarity of lack and differential that we have the opportunity to learn how to create the experience of life that we desire. And that is the way that polarity works. It's the mischievous perfection of the universe. The God created a life that will give you the conditions that are seemingly the opposite of what it is you want, so that you have the ability to create what it is you truly desire. Because we come from an infinite creator. We are an extension of a creative source energy. And if you wanted peace in your life and you prayed for peace, and then everything around you was peaceful, you would be given peace and you would therefore consume peace. And yeah, that's great. But what happens when the things around you stop feeling peaceful or stop really, truly catalyzing you into creating the peaceful experience? It's easy. It's easy to feel peaceful if you're laying on a beach in this nice weather, if you have tons of money and you got nothing to worry about. Although, as we were just talking about, if you had a lot of money, a lot of people worry, but whatever that would be for you, a peaceful experience. But if you have that, you're now consuming it. But if you want to learn how to create peace, God is going to give you turmoil, because it is only in turmoil that you actually have the opportunity and the ability to create peace. That's how polarity works when you're on spectrums. And to give you an example of how this works in tangible form, let's say you had a high-powered flashlight and you want to know just how much light your flashlight can shine. What is the one thing you need? You need darkness. You need it. If you walked out in the middle of the day and it's sunshine right above you and everything around you is light, you can't create light. It's already there. And so now you don't know how much light you can create because you were given light. You need the darkness. You need the polarity to be able to create that. If you want to experience the feeling of forgiveness, and that's something you pray for, then you will be betrayed. It has to happen. And when it comes to money, if you want to feel abundance, what does abundance feel for? How do you create the experience of abundance? And you are going to see your bank account go down. You are going to lose money. You will be stolen from. You will make poor financial decisions. Not forever, but it'll happen up and until you recognize that your feeling of abundance, of wealth, of security is not dependent on your external conditions and circumstance. It is what you generate and what you create. If there are chaotic circumstances around you, you can still feel peaceful. You have to create it. And the beauty is, just like teaching a man to fish, is once you learn how to create the quality and experience of life you want, that means you are liberated and free from actually being at the controls of the external world, being the ones that dictate what your quality and experience of life is. And that's freedom. And when you get to be in that space of actually generating and creating in that, you get to then be the one to catalyze the external world to reflect back to you what it is that you truly desire. But first, you have to be shown what you don't desire so that you can learn the mechanics and mechanisms and have the ability and skills to create what it is that you desire. So therefore, why is it just that the poor are hungry? Because if they weren't given hunger, they would never learn how to cook. They would never learn how to hunt. They would never learn how to forage. And that is going to serve them well. Because when God no longer gives food to the rich and they have to fend for themselves, they're not going to know what to do because they never learned how to create it. And that's what we're here to do, to create. And that's the gift of all of our challenges, is that any challenge that we're given holds within it the opportunity for us to learn how to create the exact opposite of that challenge, which is the generative output necessary to overcome that particular challenge. And that is why the world is just, and that is why the meek shall inherit the earth. What do you think about that, Anthony Johnson, creative? Until he chimes in, Aaron.
Well, I loved that you went and gave the metaphor about light. It was so spot on, and it was like there was this saying on my heart all day in the last couple of days that comes from a book on tape that I gifted you on Audible, where they're talking about, it's a rabbi, and he's talking about a saying from the Bible or from the Talmud or the Torah that is essentially the translation would be greater is light than darkness. But after he reframes it and he brings it inside of the teachings that he's offering, he says, no, greater is light that comes from the darkness.
Yes. You said that was the book. The book you gave me was Ken Wilber. Isn't that Mark Gaffney? Who said that?
Well, I gave you Mark Gaffney's book a while back, the book on tape on Audible.
Oh, I was thinking because you just recently gave me the Ken Wilber book.
I did. And by the way, I checked. The other one did arrive. I assume it arrived to you, but it's from a different seller. So it wasn't shipped the same way. And who knows where it should have arrived.
How long ago did it arrive?
Like a couple of days after Christmas.
Oh, I'll take a look again. I don't remember seeing it. But I do love that.
This idea, this idea, it's like it's part of the yin and yang thing. I mean, you correctly pointed this out, right? Like the yin is inside the yang and the yang is inside the yin.
Yeah, when you can look at yourself as being the line on the outside of the yin and yang, holding it all, it completely changes the dynamic. Because instead of just balancing, it's not about 50-50. It's about 100-100. Can we hold it all? Can we recognize that the entirety of it is within our consciousness, within our awareness?
We have no callers into the Easy Money Show yet.
Maybe you should change the banner.
I didn't even put the number to call into.
Is there a number? Do we have a number? We also, the ticket for the flight keeps going up. So it should book soon. I think I want to come in one day early for sure, potentially 2 days.
What's a weekend a couple days before, right?
So if it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is the event, I'd probably look to come in Saturday morning or potentially Friday.
Got it. Yeah, I need to double check with the family on that, just in terms of timing, because I'm already away a few more days than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah.
But
But you
if we
don't
were,
necessarily need to.
right, I don't necessarily need to. And the other part of it was, do I fly in to an hour away from my home and not go see my parents? You know what I mean? And my sister. Like, it's like, it feels wrong not to at least drop in and see my folks. Or at least organize a way for them to come up and see me, or meet halfway or something.
Yeah.
So give me a day or two to think about that. But if you want to book your flight now, I support that. And I guess the question then becomes, do you want to book the Airbnb Friday, Saturday as well?
Well, I think we're going to book it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But we should book it Thursday as well. So 5 nights. We need to book it 5 nights.
Right.
And so I don't think I would want to book it for a 6th night just for myself. I could probably, just find a place to stay or something for that if I come. But I'm still waiting. We need to hear back to see. So you think you'd want to try to go see your folks?
I'm not sure. Again, I got to drop in with the wife first and just go over dates again.
Yeah.
I originally thought it was just the weekend, but I was off. It starts on Sunday and then goes a few days into the week, which I can make work. Just want to give the heads up to the wife.
Yeah.
With 3 little kids. Make sure we have coverage to help out.
Yeah, that's a lot. Who would come over to support?
Best person is my wife's mom, but that's not always available. So there's other options to help out either for a day or so, or who knows what. And we're working on getting more babysitters or backup, even a nanny one day would work wonders, but we're very picky about who spends a lot of time around our kids.
Yeah. And they're very picky too.
The kids, yeah. My 4-year-old, I guess she was 3 at the time. She may have fired a nanny or two just by saying, "Thank you so much, but don't come back." Today's going to be your last day.
Yeah. Thank you, but no thank you.
That actually happened, by the way.
Did it really?
She actually told a person who we were having babysit, thinking that it could be a recurring thing, that thank you so much for coming by, but you don't need to come back tomorrow.
I thought you were kidding.
No. What was interesting was my wife had kind of done that to another babysitter, and so she witnessed the behavior of it, and then she's a sophisticated parent, so she just and I think she meant it. Like she wasn't just joking. She actually didn't want this babysitter to come back, but she'd seen the behavior of asking, just like very carefully telling somebody to never come back.
It'd be great if she was just like told your babysitter to fuck off.
I mean, she did in so many words.
Yeah. And then your 2-year-old gave her the finger.
I really like the idea of the Easy Money Show. I mean, let's start it as a segment on the Infinite Show because we can do
Yeah.
whatever we want.
Maybe a
But it could be its
segment.
own show.
Maybe a segment.
Aaron, people suffer from money problems.
Yeah, that's why it'd be a great segment on the Infinite Show.
It's really like all over the place.
Yeah.
Like I would say vastly more people suffer from money issues than don't.
Yeah.
It's almost universal.
Yeah. And vastly more people suffer than don't. And we are not, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not picky about our suffering. We are open to helping support people who are suffering about anything.
I see.
Money included. So we definitely can have a segment. That feels good. Yeah. You know what I realized? I got a lot of sleep last night. And it's nice when the kids are over and we don't have school the next day. Hazy always sleeps in my bed with me.
Mm-hmm.
And Nate sometimes. And it's sweet, but Nate's old enough to acknowledge that it's not going to happen forever. And he's like, even like last night, he's like, I know it's going to be more comfortable in my bed, but it's something just really nice about being here. You know, and the three of us at this big old bed. And it's when we didn't have to wake up. They didn't have Hebrew school today. And it's like time doesn't exist when my kids are over, in terms of like bedtimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, but like we very regularly go to bed after midnight because we're just, it's not like there's something about me that I'm just, as much as I adhere to the clock when they have like, you know, you have school in the morning, it's this time, let's get to bed, yada, yada. But if there's nothing to do the next day, I know it's good to like keep good habits, but there's a part of me that's like, am I just going to say that the numbers on this clock are more important than what you're doing right now? You know, it doesn't like, it's so artificial. And so, or maybe that's what I just tell myself. Point being, we slept for like 11 hours or something, 10 or 11 hours. And got to, you know, fell asleep at like 1, got up at like 11 or something, 11:30. And besides having crazy dreams, I felt so much better today than other days. And I have directly noticed the days when I get more sleep, I genuinely feel better that day.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, all these people that say the most important things about your health, it all starts with sleep. You got to get good sleep. I've never been one to necessarily get that much, but I've been noticing it more lately, like consciously, like, wow, why do I feel better? Oh, I slept more last night.
Mm-hmm. What's the relationship between sleep and money?
They both exist. Is it too broad?
Well, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was a lot of people can't sleep because they're thinking about money or money problems or money issues or issues that arise because of money or lack of money. Like, I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why people can't sleep.
Is money. And the biggest reason why people can't make money is because they're asleep.
Yeah.
Because they're sleeping.
The Sleeping Money Show with Easy Money, with the Easy Money Man, Easy.
Easy. Who wants some easy money?
You did make me think of something, which is my favorite sleep is after you've gone through like an amazing experience, like something really joyful, and then you just get to sleep afterwards.
Mm.
That's my favorite sleep. Like
Mm.
it could be 2 hours of sleep or 10 hours of sleep. It's not even the amount of time.
Yeah.
It's like when you like, I don't know, you go, for me, a lot of this came from like going out and having amazing nights out, whether it was when I lived in New York or went to Burning Man. Like you have like an unbelievable, like you're feeling the palpable joy in your body by being around other people. And then that sleep, when you wake up the next day, I love that. I love waking up after having like an unbelievable day or night before.
Mm.
Post-coital sleep is a good sleep.
Pre-coital sleep,
Mm.
also a good sleep.
Mm.
Also, not a good sleep during coital sleep.
That would
Maybe
never.
may-
That would never happen.
I just thought of a story that I'm not going to tell.
On the infinite airways.
That would refute your claim. But yeah, the sleep after the satisfaction of a day well done.
Is a beautiful sleep. I feel like there's a metaphor with like sleeps and banks, like sleep banks, like if you input enough into the bank and that's your sleep, then like
Mm.
I had a realization about sleep,
Mm.
which is I've always been a really interesting sleeper.
An interesting sleeper.
Yeah. Like my habits are interesting. I love to sleep on the ground.
Mhm.
I love to sleep on the ground. I love to sleep on a good couch. I have a hard time going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have good routines where you like wind down and then yes, I do brush my teeth and like certain things, but it doesn't result in me then getting into bed. My wife has an unbelievable sleep regimen and routines for getting into bed, and it works. Like she goes to bed at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. in the winter. And when you were telling the story about having your kids stay up, I was just thinking that would never happen in my household. Maybe once in a blue moon, if we have a party or people over, they stay up late. But like they're winding down like clockwork as the sun goes down.
Mm.
Because my wife turns into a pumpkin later in the evening. She loses her mojo. She loses her energy, her joie de vivre. So she needs to get to sleep to get that extra hour, 2 or 3 or 4 sleep.
Mm.
She needs a lot more sleep than I do. But this is all coming back to me explaining my sleep habits and the insight that I had, which is I'm also somebody that can stay up really late and or get up really early in the morning. I can get by with very little sleep and have for many, many, many years. And I used to be very proud of that. And then I don't want to say ashamed of that, but I realized that maybe I was slowly killing myself more by not recuperating more through sleep. And I even quit drinking coffee on my 40th birthday to help me just have better sleep patterns. And it definitely helped. Been sleeping really well the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and my dharma became 24-hour care, and so did my wife's, and all of a sudden sleep was the premium that we didn't have anymore, I realized, thank God I was built the way I was built, because I can do so much to help with those irregular patterns of filling in the gaps where nobody else is awake to make sure my daughter is okay.
Mm-hmm.
You were in training.
Exactly. It was like exactly that. That was the realization. The realization was I'd just been training all these years to be able to take care of my kids.
Hmm.
And if we can zoom out far enough and hold the tension long enough, we'll find that every single thing that happens in our life is training for something greater to come.
To add to that, and I've thought about this a few times in the last few weeks, this exact idea I'm about to share, and it's hard for me to share because it involves the death of a friend. But I had a friend that passed away recently. And out of all my friends and all my different friend groups, this was the friend that had the most free-range parenting style and really let his kids travel to places, go places, meet strangers, be all by themselves. And he really encouraged them to learn how to be by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like 5 and 7 years old. I mean, I'm not talking about 13-year-olds or 15-year-olds or 18-year-olds. I'm talking about from a very young age, really encouraged his kids to be lost in crowds in public places and to make do on their own. And if they ever needed to call him, to ask a stranger for a phone and then call his cell phone to reconnect. But then he passed away.
Hmm.
And I kept thinking that he was teaching them how to live without him there the whole time.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's all part of a grander plan. And when we can trust that, then whatever happens, like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. I can't rationalize this at all. But there's something always great. It has to be. It has to be all synchronicity or all chaos. There's no way for it to be one or the other. We did have a question come in, I think, for you from Zach. Wanted to know if your wife was some sort of manifestation of Germanic folklore. Is your wife a manifestation of Germanic folklore?
Well, let's start by breaking this down a little bit. Thank you, Zach, for your question. That's an amazing question. I have no idea what it means, but you did nail the head. You did hit the head on the nail. My wife is German. Her family is German. She grew up with a German grandmother who grew up in Germany during World War II. She called her Oma, and she lived through World War II as a teenager and came out the other side, ended up meeting a GI who was stationed in Germany after the war, who fought in the Battle of the Bulge. That is my wife's grandfather, who has since passed. Both of them have passed. But German culture runs strong in that family. So I don't know how you came up with this idea of Germanic folklore related to my wife and her sleeping patterns. But what a great question.
Mm. Yeah. So there must be something about Germans that are incredibly strict with bedtimes for their children. And that actually makes sense, because if you look at any German nursery rhymes, they're complete fucking nightmares.
Are we talking about like the Brothers Grimm? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, like the Brothers Grimm, like if you really look at the Brothers Grimm, some of it might seem like, oh, that's a little aggressive, but recognize that the Brothers Grimm was the softest of the German fairy tales, enough so that it could make it over to the US. I don't remember any specifically, but it was like, and like they didn't resolve. It was like a lot of the fairy tales kind of have like a lesson to learn. It would be something about like, a little boy took some cookies from the cookie jar. And his mom said, don't take any cookies from the cookie jar, or else the cookie monster is going to come get you. And then the little boy came and he took a cookie. And then the the German Cookie Monster would come and like eat his hands off and sodomize him, and then like, throw his sister into a well and then drink her blood. And the lesson is, listen to your mother. The German fairy tales are really fucking intense. So that's probably why the kids go to bed so early. Wasn't because it was like, hey, can you read us a fairy tale? It was, if you don't go to bed right now, I'm going to read you this fairy tale.
I do think about the history of language a lot, because English comes from German. I always thought of English coming from Latin. And yes, there was Latin influence and lots of Latin words and Greek words, but it's more originally a Germanic language, meaning the Anglo-Saxon tribes were Germanic tribes. We kind of talked about that earlier. So were the Vikings. I find that very interesting, that all the Germanic tribes differentiated and then they became so separate from one another, they no longer recognized the other as being part of their tribe, right? Like the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons. Like, how does that happen? And just a few generations go by, or even just a few decades, and like words start to like become new words and have new meanings,
Mm-hmm.
Like in Normandy, in the north of France, the Normans were Vikings. And at some point, some duke somewhere in France said it would be better if the Vikings actually just laid down roots here in the northern part of France, so that if other Vikings came along, they could fight them because they're great fighters. They could stop all the raids from happening because the Vikings would just go up the rivers, and Paris was up a river. And then they would raid and pillage, all the villages and even the big castles. So how do we stop that? Well, let's fight fire with fire. We'll take a group of the Northmen and we'll give them some land and we'll give their leaders some aristocratic titles, and then they will stop more raiders from coming. And guess what? It worked. Normandy is named after Northmen because the Normans who settled there were Vikings placed there to stop other Vikings from continuing to raid into France. And when the Englishmen, around 1000 AD, a few years after that, didn't know who their next king was going to be, it was a Northman who raided England and became the next king of the English. And the English were ruled by Norman kings, by French Norman kings for generations. And the aristocratic people spoke French in England. And the commoners spoke English or Old English. I just think that's amazing. That's actually what happened with English history.
Had no idea.
And yet here we are speaking English.
Thanks to Norman.
Yeah.
We also were just joined by our friend Hunter Wumau.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello, Hunter. Welcome back.
Yeah. Hunter, we really want to get you that ticket to America. We just need
99,999 of your friends to join you.
Yes. That's what it was. Yeah. Maybe 99,994. So we're getting there, dude. We're working on it. But I think it's a good time to wrap. We started with Vikings and now we can end with Vikings. which, let's see, today, the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions played a game tonight. It's the final game. There might be a game tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'm not following super closely. But the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions played a game tonight. And the winner of the game is not only going to win the division because they were in the same division, but because they both have the two best records in the NFC, the winner of this one game will get the number one seed in the entire NFC, which includes a first round bye, which now that there's 7 teams, it only goes to the first team. And the loser of this game, who will have the second best record in the NFC, will actually be the 5th seed because the division, the 4 division leaders, regardless of record, get the top 4 seeds.
I don't know about in football because football really takes a lot out of you the more games you play. But in baseball and basketball, we've seen many examples where the top seeded team or the team that gets buys doesn't always have the momentum going into the playoffs that results in like extended deep runs into the playoffs. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. The Dodgers showed that for a couple of years, that sometimes teams that get the bye, they lose the regularity. They maybe go home. There's a different rhythm, and they come back. And the Dodgers, outside of this past year, the previous 2 years, best record, had the time off, came back, lost early in the playoffs. And what they did this year, they did something different. They actually got together every day. They might have even stayed at a hotel. They might not have, but they all texted every day, and they were communicating every day, and they watched video. So I think, and that might have been like, they definitely for sure had this text group. And we don't think about that. We think the team, like they're always together, but it's just coworkers. It's people that go to work and then they leave. And so when they don't have work that day, they're not necessarily just going and being with their coworkers, but they made it a point to say, you know what, let's all have a shared text group. And you think, my first time when I heard that was like, well, you don't always have that, but it's like, of course not. They're just, there's different people, different relationships. And that, well, they ended up winning the World Series, although, man, that was quite a comeback against San Diego. So I do think there is something to it. In football, I don't know what the stats say, but I would venture to say that if any sport had a benefit for having a bye, it would be football, just because of the sheer physicality of it.
Right. And by the end of the season, so many players are playing injured. Having that extra week just lets you heal a little bit more.
Yeah, I would think so. And so to end the show with the Vikings, who were playing both the 14-2 Vikings at the 14-2 Lions, and the Lions, who have been so bad for so long, and the Vikings got it handed to them. They lost 31-9. It was 10-9, and then
sounds like interceptions probably happened, or fumbles, turnovers.
Sam
Darnold, a great quarterback. He's really shown he's been the turnaround story of this year.
The running back for Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs, scored 3 touchdowns after it was 10-9, and he also had the first score of the game. So he had 139 yards rushing for 3 TDs and 5 catches for 31 yards in a TD. He had a 4 touchdown game, which I would have to imagine is the first 4-touchdown game by a Detroit Lions running back since Barry Sanders? I would bet money on that. I would bet $5.94 that a Detroit Lion running back has not scored 4 touchdowns since Barry Sanders. Do you want to take that bet?
I thought we were going to keep our podcast / live stream under 2 hours, but the Barry Sanders story took us over.
Well, it's fitting because at the 2-minute mark, I'm looking at it. Did Barry Sanders ever rush for over 2,000 yards? And the question is yes. The answer is yes, 2,053.
Yeah,
and when we just hit 2 hours 53 minutes, right when come on
now.
Are we not in the portal?
That's right up there. In case you were wanting to rewind and just double check the synchronicity.
Okay, I'm going to look this last thing up with our friend ChatGPT. What Detroit Lions running backs have scored 4 touchdowns in a game?
I mean, Barry Sanders was so good, but he definitely retired early, right? Like that's part of the story.
Yeah, that is. Yes. In fact, wow. Well, I got to give, that's good to know that how quick the thing with ChatGPT was like, oh, it takes a long time for it to learn and it's not good for Google. I just searched it and there have been 2 games in Lions history, in the history of the Detroit Lions, as far back as they've gone, 2 games where a running back has scored 4 touchdowns. Once Barry Sanders did it against the Minnesota Vikings.
Same team.
And the second time it was ever done was tonight.
Oh,
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Good thing I didn't take that bet. It would have been easy money.
Yeah, and then all the Ugandan kids would not have had their prize money for Super Chess.
It's happening.
Interesting now what's going to happen too with all of these records in the NFL with statistics because they've added an extra game.
Right.
That's a huge difference for
right.
all of the records now having one whole game more.
Because, you know, when all the players sit around, you know what they say to each other? I wish we just played one more game this season.
Yeah. And so there was who was it? Saquon Barkley had a chance to break Eric Dickerson's record for most rushing yards in a season.
They sat him.
No, but he played a little. He played a bit, but Dickerson came out and was like, "No, I don't want to break my fucking record. It's bullshit."
Because there's one more game.
Yeah, basically. So, the Vikings.
I just want to remind you that the Vikings wrote with a language that are sometimes called runes, R-U-N-E-S, or the Farquhar runes. Is that right? No. Far. Anyway, rewind. When you had your injury, and I was still at Burning Man, and I realized that you had been injured, I broke down crying for a long time. And somebody came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And then they said, "Would you like to pick a rune from a bag that they then presented to me. So I picked a rune that turned out to be the shape of the letter M, which when I looked it up later, not then because I didn't have a book or an encyclopedia or a Google to ask what the letter meant, it stands for marriage. And I met my wife 3 days later at an airport in China.
3 days later.
And then I said, I'm really sad because a good friend of mine has been injured and he might be dead. Do you mind if I pick a rune for him?
Mm.
And so I picked a second rune. Do you remember which rune I picked on your behalf?
It was the D for divorce.
It's the one that looks like a fish. That is exactly the symbol that the early Christians used to denote Christ.
Mm.
I picked the Christ rune.
I don't
Even
remember
though-
this story. Amazing. I want to go to Glastonbury. I'm pretty sure Jesus went there.
Well, whether or not he went there physically during his lifetime,
Which I think he did.
which is pretty incredible that a man that grew up in the Middle East and was crucified by the Romans on a cross would actually end up becoming the deity that the people of Glastonbury worshipped and
Mhm.
continue to worship to this day.
Yeah. The kid did something with his life. We can give him that. And this has been another episode of The Infinite. We've laughed. Good night. We didn't cry, so I couldn't say. We've talked about crying. That reminds me of, I remember watching Cheers as a kid, and Norm, good old Norm, who I played basketball at his house once because his godson was one of my best friends in high school.
Do you know who Norm is named after?
Normandy.
The Northmen.
So his thing that he said was, women, you can't live with them past the beer nuts.
Good night.